Hello and welcome. Are you aware if we continue felling and cutting trees in the African continent, in the next 11 years, we shall have the last tree standing? 31% of the world is covered by forests. And in Africa, 21.4% of the African continent is covered by natural forests. Between 2015 and 2020, 4.4 million hectares of trees and forests were cut in the African continent. This is very worrying. Africa as a continent has 528 million hectares of forest land. However, between 2015 and 2020, 4.4 million hectares of forest land was cut. What are the causes of environmental degradation? The causes are majorly four. One, firewood for domestic use or charcoal. Two, wild animal penetration in the forest, like elephants, they destroy them. Three, timber production. Four, wildfires. There is a traditional practice of wild bush fires in the African continent that destroys incredible amount of trees in the continent. But of interest to me is the charcoal trade. The charcoal business is a huge and a major cause of deforestation in the African continent. It is estimated that the charcoal business, 65% of the world charcoal is produced in the African continent. And the biggest countries in production of charcoal in the African continent is Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia. So for every minute we have commercial production of charcoal, and in parts of Uganda, trees are being cut using power saws. The rate of deforestation is alarming. The traditional streams that were protected by the natural forest cover is no more. The streams are dry because of the alarming rate of deforestation for purposes of charcoal, and yet the population in the African continent is growing. Strangely, this same charcoal that some of us environmentalists are campaigning is providing 30.6 million US dollars in revenue in the entire African continent, and is employing close to 40 million people. But strangely, we need to know, any person using charcoal anywhere in the African continent is 2.5 times more expensive than a person using any other means of production for food production, whether it be gas and electricity. What has bedeviled the African government? What can be done to ensure this trend of deforestation can be stopped? What can be done to save the environment for our children and our children's children? If you go to Canada, you will drive for thousands of kilometers, you find that there is a deliberate effort to plant trees. You find a woman, I found a woman of 98 years in Europe planting a tree, and you ask a question, why are you planting a tree? You are aging. They will say, the trees I am enjoying now were planted by my grandparents. So let me also plant so that my grandchildren can enjoy the fruits of my work. Someone in the evenings of their lives. But in the African continent, someone would say, I'm already old, why should I plant trees? I die and leave it for who? Really? Why should African governments continue to levy taxes on gas? Because these are alternative sources of energy. While I was a member of parliament in Uganda, I raised that the government should put zero taxes on gases so that it's affordable to the people. It's still a shame that many African governments still rely on tax gas, a source of revenue, so people go for cheaper alternative sources of energy, and this leads to deforestation and destruction of the environment. What should be done to save mother environment from destruction, from charcoal use, from domestic use? I think there are 4 prescriptions. 1, the effort begins with you listening to me. We have people living in the most prestigious areas of the country, the most prestigious Capitol Hills in the African continent. Huge, magnificent buildings, but you go behind, you still find them cooking with charcoal. What a shame. We have to make a deliberate effort to start using gas to save the environment. 2, we have to make personal efforts. It's not about asking the government to do something. We have to make personal efforts to plant at least 3 trees in every homestead. It has to be personal. Before you point at anyone, remember all the 3 fingers are pointing at you. There has to be personal effort. In 1960 in Uganda, there was a deliberate personal effort in Buganda Kingdom that every family plants an edible fruit. They plant fene, they plant mangoes, they plant guava. So every family has those, and you cannot cut these edible fruits for purposes of charcoal production, jackfruit. So there has to be a deliberate individual efforts to save the environment. Before we can even ask and start campaigns to tell governments to have to zero rate taxes on gases so that people can save the environment. Electricity, the cost of electricity is very disturbing. Many African governments have terrible concessionaire agreements on electricity. I begin with my home country, Uganda. We have the 2nd most expensive electricity in the world, and yet we have Owen Falls Dam and we have natural dams and waterfalls. It's because the agreements that has been entered by government favors individuals to make profits. Because now it becomes very expensive to cook using electricity. People would rather go for charcoal. So there is need for governments to revisit their statistics on electricity. There is need for government to revisit their policies on electricity for domestic use vis-a-vis commercial use. Because if we don't do that, we shall cut the last tree and the falls and the dams will also dry up because there will be no environmental coverage of the waters around the natural falls. So it will be suicide. We will be shooting ourselves in the foot. The debate has to start now. Electricity in Africa should be affordable just like electricity in Europe. There is some research being done on what they call, if I may read, the green charcoal business. I've seen many governments have written policy statements and they view charcoal as a business, including the government of my own country, Uganda. But some research is being done in Haiti where they have started what they call commercial green charcoal business. You watching at me there, stop going to offices to look for jobs. This is an area where you can explore, which relates to production of briquettes, where we use rubbish, we use soil, and we produce a formula that holds water, and those same briquettes are now used for domestic purposes. And it is happening successfully in South Africa. I was in South Africa. You find briquettes being sold in supermarkets. I have seen in Haiti where the government had seen that 98% of the forest in Haiti was depleted, and they started empowering women groups to produce briquettes and coal for purpose of domestic consumption. Create an NGO, create an organization so that we can use these polythene bags to produce briquettes, and then we look for funding and they are produced at a commercial level to save the world from environmental degradation. Even you person involved in charcoal trade, you are shooting yourself in the foot. In the next 20 years, you will not be able to afford charcoal because there will be no tree standing, and the poor persons will perish and the rich persons will be able to afford to put air condition in their rooms. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. You got to do something about this and not wait for someone else to do something about it. Last but not least, I have seen in many countries, they are friends of the environment, they are producing energy-saving stoves. It's a very amazing and interesting technology. Please, when there are trade exhibitions, go and see. You'll see amazing technologies. I have seen a technology at a trade exhibition at the showground, Oma showground in Uganda, where only one piece of briquette, one briquette can cook a whole milk. There is also need for more research on biogas. So we need to explore the cheap energy-saving stoves. Government prisons should explore cheap energy stoves. Government prisons in Africa should cultivate fast-growing kind like eucalyptus. These ones, when they are to cook food, they even generate additional energy because of the oil in those particular species of trees. So the campaign has to begin now. President Barack Obama said, we are the people we have been waiting for. We are the people we have been waiting for to save the environment. Go to these exhibitions and see the products. And lastly, we need to launch the Go Green campaign. Governments, ministries of environment, ministries of land, water in the African continent. We need to launch the Go Green campaign now, not even tomorrow. For example, imagine India as a country planted 66 million trees in one day. In one day. We are here going for workshops, for seminars, taking 3 days. And guess what? The only country to break that record was Ethiopia. Ethiopia under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, they broke the record and planted 350 million trees in one day. Bingo! In one day. So African governments, we need to wake up. It's a high time we did the right thing and planted millions of trees. We can Africanize the environment. We can do massive afforestation in the continent and save the face of the earth from this global warming. I am appealing to you as an environmentalist at a personal level, do something. At an institutional level, do something. Otherwise, if we sit and watch, if we cut charcoal, if we use charcoal, if we don't begin behavioral campaigns, in the next 11 years, all the Africans may have to gather under one tree because they would have cut all the rest. And I want to thank individual private tree growers, especially in western parts of Uganda and other parts of the African continent. I have friends who individually have over 600 acres of trees that have been planted. So let the corporates, let the professionals, let the graduates engage in commercial tree planting so that you can also get funding from the global oxygen and carbon credit funds. Thank you for watching. Let's do something about the environment. In this boat, if we all joke, we shall all sink together.